Hi, I'm Savadil, with no canon pronunciation. It has been a while, and the next Frontier video is not done yet. So to keep the channel going while I get that done, I've prepared a video that doesn't involve custom art. Since Digimon Story Time Stranger is coming out in October, I'll give some attention to the Olympos 12 by choosing evolution names for them. I am not going to list out all the possibilities, or we would be here all day. I will only showcase one or two options I think work particularly well. For this, I'll make sure not to repeat any Digimon. However, to make the video a bit more interesting, I will also try to predict some of the evolutions we'll see in Time Stranger. No limits for it, other than what I find likely. Apollomon and Dianamon. Let's just get these two out of the way, since their lines are the most obvious. Coronamon to Pheramon to Flaremon to Apollomon, and Lunamon to Bacchusmon to Ceresmon to Dianamon, with Grace-Novamon as the jokers of the two. For the Time Stranger predictions, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of the pre-evolutions Ceresmon had for Dianamon. Ceresmon obviously, Antilamon, Insecimon and Tamon. One more option, that is not yet confirmed for Time Stranger, but likely, based on the Digimon we've seen, is Kukimon. For Apollomon, if we base it on precedent, we might get Repleomon or Vulcanusmon, other than Flaremon of course, but I'm not very convinced about anything else. Jupitermon. He has a very clear intended line too, with Elecmon to Egiomon to Egiochismon to Jupitermon Wrath Node. Out of all the Egiochismon variants, Holy looks the most similar, but I'm going to assume they will all evolve to Jupitermon, if they even have separate evolution trees. Considering how many there are, I wouldn't be surprised if it is exclusively their evolution, but I could see them using Holy Angelmon too, maybe even something like Parrotmon, because of the lightning, its status as a titan notwithstanding. Junomon. My line for her will be Tinkermon to Witchmon to Bastemon to Junomon and Junomon Hysteric Mode. Bandai, that's one interesting name for a mode change, but who am I to say? Bastemon as a Junomon pre-evolution is kind of implied for the Digimon card game, since they both have cards in XII drawn by the same artist, Teppei Tadokoro. They are also both virus, bejeweled goddesses with sharp limbs, tiaras, bare midriffs, braided hair, and covered mouths. For Time Stranger, things aren't very clear. New Century chose Shutumon for her, but I'm not expecting her to be in the game, and the Hyper Coliseum card had Junomon evolving from Enjomon, but I imagine they will try to avoid giving her too many Olympians as options, especially considering the many evolutions Enjomon usually has, and Venusmon seems likelier. Delamon has the peacock motif, but again, I think they'll save it for a different Olympian, Ceresmon. So I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say she might evolve from stuff such as Sylphimon, Hypogryphomon, Tamon, or Matadormon. Next, Marsmon. I wanted to choose something atypical for Marsmon, so I've gone with Gavumon to Dorulumon to Jaegardurulmon to Marsmon, keeping the horn all the way through. The reason I wanted to do that is that Time Stranger seems to be going with Marsmon's classic Digimon 3 line. Bearmon to Grismon to Grapleomon to Marsmon. It's not outright confirmed, but it is very likely based on what we've seen. Deathmeramon is a possible option, and so is Panjamon, in spite of the elemental difference. Other pre-evolutions we could see in spite of going to other Olympians are Flaremon and Asuramon. Mercurymon. This one is pretty straightforward, with Gavumon Black to Garurumon Black to Wergarurumon Black to Mercurymon. For Time Stranger, since the Black Gavumon line has a pre-order bonus, I'm expecting them to use regular Wergarurumon, with the black one still being a possible alternative path, just one that is locked for those without it. MacLeod feels like a safe bet too. There is some precedent for it, and it was in Cybersleuth. We know they are not keeping the trees the same, but it still seems like a relevant thing to keep in mind. Minervamon. The go-to line for this one is usually Wormmon to Quaramon to Sandiramon to Minervamon to Mervamon. Another option that is all about big weapons and greenish hair is Ignitmon to Kinkakumon to Chohakaimon to Minervamon to Mervamon. I wanted to do two for this one because, based on the roster I'm expecting from Time Stranger, there don't seem to be very fitting options for her. Quaramon and Sandiramon have 3D models from Digimon Rearise, but I'm not seeing enough room for the Devas. and the armored Digimon from 02 appear to be the only ones present. We have also seen Wormon's evolution tree and Coatlemon is just not there. Her pre-evolutions in Cyber Sleuth were Marsmon, Digitamamon, Vergarurumon Black, and Yatagaramon, so I guess we might see some combination of those, I guess. Neptunemon. The line I'll use for Neptunemon is Swimmon to Tobiumon to Marine Chimeramon to Neptunemon. For Time Stranger I'll predict Hangulmon, Waymon, Daigomon, and Shawijinmon. We know there is one Hangulmon that is relevant to the story. It was originally from the Titan army, which would typically point to it not being Neptunemon, but it is still possible. Many people think Shellmon will eventually evolve to it, though I suspect that might actually be Venusmon. Vulcanusmon. The line I usually like for him is Utamamon Red to Hookmon to Captain Hookmon to Vulcanusmon. Vulcanusmon has an octopus-like armor while being a fire Digimon, so Digimon that are associated with water, without actually being water elementals or dwellers, feel appropriate to me. Utamamon Red is a fire Digimon too, while Hookmon and Captain Hookmon are sailors, but use artillery or firearms rather than water. Plus, they serve as a nod to the gods Hephaestus and Vulcan being disabled. For Time Stranger, I'm expecting a Junomon, since that is the only pre-evolution Vulcanusmon has officially had, and we know Musimon is in. I could see Octomon to Junomon to Vulcanusmon being a possible path in the game, but they could also use Daigomon for some octopus representation. Vulcanmon seems like a no-brainer as well. I will be surprised if it's not an option. Venusmon. My line for her is Vergamon to Shortmon to Weddingmon to Venusmon. One could argue, and I'm sure some will, that Weddingmon is better suited for Junomon, since Juno was the goddess of marriage. But I think the modern concept of marriage is very strongly linked to love, in a way it never was in the ancient world, and I just think Venusmon fits her vibe better. I think it's obvious that Time Stranger is going to be using Angelwoman for her. It will honestly be shocking if they don't. For a Birth of Venus reference, I could also see Mercurymon, not a Digimon that has been confirmed, but still possible. We've seen others from Survive. Shakomon to Shellmon to Mermaidmon to Venusmon would be a nice line. Ceresmon. Floramon to Kiwimon to either Delamon or Sirenmon to Ceresmon and Ceresmon Medium. Personally, I prefer Delamon, but I decided to include Sirenmon too, since her connection to Ceresmon is so established. It's 100% something Time Stranger is going to use too. Since we've seen Sirenmon and Bacchusmon hanging out, he is said to be friends with Ceresmon, so that might be the unevolved form of Ceresmon in this story. I'm expecting Lilymon and Lilamon for her too, and Blossomon if it makes it in. Speaking of Bacchusmon, let's deal with that one next. The line I'm choosing for Bacchusmon is almost fully alcoholic. Psychemon to Ginkakumon to Orochimon to Bacchusmon, and his crapulence mode. Orochimon is a snake like Bacchusmon, and it has an attack called Sake Breath. Ginkakumon has the Beni Hisago he uses to turn enemies into alcohol. And Psychemon is a bright pink lizard like Bacchusmon, with a name that comes from psychedelics. For Time Stranger, I could see them using the pre-evolutions they have used before, Piccolomon and Digitamamon, especially that last one, for the connection to food and the Drunken Animon. However, I could see them using some other Digimon that have been confirmed, like XII and Garvemon. Plutomon. Not an Olympian, but still closely connected to the group, so let's give him a line. Gazimon to Dovermon to Kerberumon, and its werewolf mode to Plutomon. I could have gone with Labramon since it has been used a bit more often, but I kinda prefer Gazimon, and it's a pretty common pre-evolution for Dovermon too. They will use Kerberumon for Time Stranger, that feels obvious, but I will try to predict some other options they might include. Phantomon, Skullsatamon, Bamdemon, Vergarurumon Black maybe, hell, maybe even Aegis-mon Black, the sky's the limit. And that is all. We will have to wait to see what pre-evolutions Time Stranger actually uses. In the meantime, like, subscribe, hit the bell and all that if you're feeling up to it. I'm on Patreon like I've said in other videos, but I'm on VGen now too, ready to get verified. I just have to wait for now. You can get some art commissions there. Also, I hope you're still awake. I'm sorry about how soporific my voice is, and about my accent too. This does not come natural to me. Reading the scripts is a slog. But above all, I hope you have a good time and farewell.